Hi everyone, welcome back to Dobby Books. And today I'm going to do a tag that I was tagged in about 3 weeks ago. So it was just shortly before I came down with COVID. So I just had to do a little recovery in the process. So let's get started with it. This is called BookTube About Me tag. And I was tagged by Jess Book Girl TV. And this tag was originated by Harriet Rose 13. So let's start with the first question. What do you study and/or what is your job? I am an English major and history minor. I should be graduating next semester, my bachelor's degree. And as far as my employment goes, I'm an on-call Spanish interpreter for my local school district. The next question. What is your favorite social media? YouTube. There's a surprise, huh? Number 3, if you had another channel, what would it be about? Now this one made me think, what would it be about? And I remembered something much later on. There's a channel that I like to watch at night to help me fall asleep. And I call it ASMR, A-S-M-R. And those initials stand for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And what it is basically our bodies responding to particular sounds. They relax us. They give us a tingly feeling. Keyboards, like the sound of keyboards over the phone, that always did it for me. I immediately just go, and I shift into this mode where I wanted to fall asleep. That's what ASMR is, A-S-M-R. I'm sure that's not what others call it. They call it ASMR, but for me that's such a long name, ASMR, ASMR. So I just call it ASMR. So yes, I think if I had another channel, I would probably do ASMR productions because I love them so much. Number 4, do you play an instrument? I used to a long time ago when I was in middle school. I played the clarinet for a few years, and then I stopped, of course. But there's an instrument I do plan on eventually learning, and that is piano. I love the sound of pianos. Very pretty. Number 5, what hobbies do you have other than reading? So my initial response was, is there anything other than reading? But this is what I came up with. I like collecting books. The kinds of books I like to collect, it's a little bit varied. If I go to the high-end books, then I'm looking at first editions, so first print, first edition. If I can find first that have the typos in them, the errata in them, I will get those. Then there's special editions which are purchased by publishers such as Suntop or Folio. And there's a few other, I'm not remembering off the top, Levidian, etc. They may have special editions that I'm interested in. Books Illustrated is another one. So I have, for example, for Folio, I have some Stephen King's. Pet Cemetery, Misery, The Shining, etc. I have The Consolation of Philosophy by Folio. I have Inkheart from Books Illustrated. It's a beautifully illustrated book that I've made a video on. I also got, I don't know who the publisher is, but they're Jane Austen novels, a couple of the Jane Austen novels, and when you open them up, it has part of the story on one page, and on the other page is a facsimile, paper design and everything, of the letters that were written, that you can see written in the book itself. They did facsimile, beautiful handwriting, and these letters are tucked in these little pockets and everything. It's just a beautiful way for a story to come to life. So these are special edition books that I do collect. And I have my Harry Potter series, I think, is the most significant one because I have first editions of the UK publications from Bloomsbury, first of the US publications. I have Mina Lima editions. I have House editions. So I collect special editions of books, and if I find older copies, original copies of authors I like, stories I like, I also like to purchase those. Other hobbies I have, I love studying history, studying it chronologically, and then pulling in other genres that existed at the time, came into existence at the time, as well as other disciplines. So if I'm studying an era in history, I'll pull the science in from that time. This is this particular time in science. Let's say chemistry was really blossoming. So I'm going to find out about scientists during that time in history. I'm going to look at the music that was created during that time, artworks created during that time, the literature written during that time. That's what I love to do when it comes to my study of history. I also have a very weird habit of collecting curriculum. I'll buy curriculum, topics either I want to learn about, and I like to see how it starts from level 1 and it works its way up. There's something about that. I'm sure there's a name to it. But I'm drawn to that, to curriculum. So yeah, that's another weird thing that I do. As far as outdoorsy stuff, I love riding my bicycle. I love going on hikes. And that's basically my other hobbies. On to the next question. Favorite TV shows? I don't watch TV as a rule. I really don't. I don't listen to a lot of radio either. But I do use an app on my smart TV. Hulu is an app I use, and the only show that I currently watch is Only Murders in the Building, which is on every Thursday night. There are 10 episodes per season. That show has Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. And when I went to New York to visit one of my children, I made a point of finding the subway stop that came out just around the block from the building of that series, and I took a picture, posted it on Facebook for those that were also fans. There you go. It's a fun show. Next question. What got you into reading? When I was in 3rd grade, there was a girl sitting over to the left of me, and I could see her from where I was. We sat at tables rather than individual desks. And I noticed that she wasn't looking up at the teacher. She was looking down at her lap, and her whole attention was to something on her lap. So when I looked at her, I noticed she had a book on her lap, and she'd read it, and she had a very forceful way of turning the pages. And a little hand. So every time she finished the page, I'd hear that flip. And I remember watching her and thinking to myself, she's really getting a lot out of that book. How do you get so much out of a book? I want a book to captivate me like that. And I think I must have already had something in me that was drawn to books. I think I did, because when I was in kindergarten and 1st grade, before I really could read, and we had the bookmobile come every Thursday, I went. I couldn't read the books, but I loved being around them. So when I saw this classmate of mine by the name of Tessa, I started becoming her friend so I could hang out with her and get the inside, scoop on how to become an avid reader, and she was great. She shared all her books with me. I kid you not, I'd go into her house, and she had stacks from the floor. I don't know how high. Let's say 2 to 3 feet high of books, stacks that she was working on. These were her TBR stacks. She was a 3rd grader. This girl was my inspiration, and ever since then I've been incurable, but it's been wonderful. Now, next question. What are your favorite and least favorite genres? Least favorite genre, math. Math and me have a careful relationship. I of course, don't want to, like a neighbor, I want to continue to say good morning and to be on good terms, but I don't want to hang out. Kind of like that. My most favorite genre? Let's say history. History related. I think I'm very drawn to that. Gosh, history related could be a lot of stuff, but yeah. Let's say history. Okay. Next question. What books define your childhood? Curious George. I loved the Curious George series. Oh, I wish my mother had known to purchase them. For years after that, I wanted a pet chimpanzee. I didn't want a dog. I didn't want a cat. I wanted a pet chimpanzee. Hmm. And the Beverly Cleary books, Beezus and Ramona. Oh my gosh, I read those books. Uh, Ralph and the something like that. The Mouse and the Motorcycle. I loved all the Beverly Cleary books. And do you know I don't have a collection of them in my granddaughter's bookshelves? That's going to be something I have to do. Those were the best books. And also Pippi Longstocking came out. I forgot how old I was. But I love the Pippi Longstocking stories. I love that Pippi was this friendly girl who was independent, and she'd get herself in trouble, and she didn't mean to. She was kind of like Beezus, just awkward, weird looking, would get themselves into trouble and didn't mean to get themselves into trouble. I could relate very much to those girls, yes. And for one Halloween, I dressed up as Pippi Longstocking because I already had the freckles, I already had the red hair, not quite as red as Pippi. I had more auburny hair. I just couldn't figure out how to get the braids to stand out straight to the side. And the last question. Tell us an interesting fact about you. I had to think about this. I guess when we are on the inside looking in, it's harder to catch that. But I think what finally came to mind is ever since I was very, very young, maybe elementary school, maybe it started kicking in middle school, which is more likely, I had this tendency to feel premonitions. I didn't understand it. I didn't do anything to bring it on, but I would have premonitions. When family members were expecting babies, I would have dreams. And whatever the sex of the baby was in the dream, I knew it would be the opposite. And I was right. I dreamt my cousin was having a girl. I knew she'd be having a boy. The biggest one was when my brother was 17 years old. 6 months before this premonition I knew was going to happen. I couldn't explain to you why I sensed it was 6 months away. It just was. I sensed that something very serious, like life or death serious, was going to happen to him. But I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't tell my mother, Mom, I'm having this premonition that something might kill Dave in 6 months. I can't say that to my mother. I couldn't tell my sister. She really didn't have those experiences. She really couldn't relate to it. So I quietly suffered, knowing it was getting closer and closer and closer. My sister had a dream 3 days before this thing finally happened. And she never has anything like this. So that told me this was confirmation. It's coming. It's almost here. 3 days before it happened, she had a dream. And the minute as she's telling the dream to my mother, and I'm overhearing it in the morning, she didn't even have to finish with the dream. I was interpreting it as she was going along. And I so much wanted to tell someone, and I couldn't do that. Now, at this time, I was 19 years old. And all I know is that 2 weeks before it actually did happen, I had a very good friend of mine named Debbie. We would hang out, and I finally just spilled my guts out to her because I couldn't hold it in any longer. And of course, she never had these experiences. And all she could do was just, sympathize with me. I'm very sorry you're going through this, Denise. Maybe nothing will happen, blah, blah, blah. But it happened. It ended up happening. And yes, it was something that he almost died from. Yeah, so it did happen. So I had premonitions. I had dreams. I had some dreams that were very scary, very real. And I've had what I call visitations in my dreams. So there's dreams that are very ethereal and you forget what they are very quickly. And there are dreams that are like dreams, but you remember detail after detail. Okay, those are visitations. So that's always been something about me. And this is something that is passed on in families, apparently. Like, eye color and hair color and whatever. This apparently is something that's passed along in families. And the history is on my mother's side. So there's another whole video on that. But yes, that is an interesting thing about me. So that's my tag, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me, and happy October. Bye-bye.